Attention all gamers, we welcome you back to the Excellency Mid-League Fall Split for Week 3. Tonight's featured matchup has two teams that will duke it out to find their first map of the split. And one team could go home tonight off without one, off the back of a 3-0. So expect heavy competition here. I am Sulpan, joined today by TDS Cast, and we are excited to bring you tonight's matchup between Grid Esports and GCG Legion.
Yeah, an exciting match, like you're saying. The fact that these two teams will be playing to try and not be the bottom of the barrel, try and get a win, and maybe even start a comeback in terms of wins will be really important for both of these teams. And I'm really excited to see what either of these teams bring on. With a new patch, with new picks, with things like that, it's always interesting to see what the teams will try and pull off to get that also important win and move up in the standings.
I think what's interesting to me is that they both have a very similar story. The top two teams in the league that I think there isn't much contention for, according to power rankings at least, is Glacial Mingos and CBR Rush. Both those teams have 3-0'd one of these teams. So that's where 3 of their losses have come from. The other 3 losses for each of these teams has come from the middle of the pack team, one of those 4th, 5th place teams that are currently 3-3. So they each have essentially, in theory, the exact same power level. They're both currently ranked, I believe, in both standings and in power rankings as 9th and 10th. But this is the first we're going to see of them on stream. So really, both these teams are looking to prove not only themselves, but also the casters and really just to everyone in Excellency that they are a team worth being afraid of.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you bring up the way that both of these teams are struggling, because I feel like even though they both have had a share of similar experiences in this league, one of the teams may just be ahead of the other just by direct matchup, which means that even though they could be good against other teams, particularly in this matchup, one of the two will just be the better, and that could just showcase that they are better than this particular other team instead of just being better than other teams in the league. And I think that divide right here may impulse them to try and get wins against similar teams or similar playstyles that other teams share with this with either of these teams.
Absolutely. So we're getting in the draft here already, and this is an unfamiliar. We all saw what Closer could do with the champion. Diego going to be the first ban here for Grid Esports, and it's a good one for them as well, as I believe GCG Legion has 1 or 2 players that they could flex this between, on top of it just being a really strong power pick.
Yeah, I think that it makes sense to ban the Diego. I feel like Diego did receive some nerfs in the most recent patch, but his power level is still really high. His late game prowess is still there, and his passive, I think what makes him much more problematic, is still there. So it's supposed to happen, but you need to know, but you need to be able to execute it as well and outplay your opponent. So much more so than being one favored than the other, it's going to depend hopefully and wholeheartedly on what the player can achieve with the champion. If you're able to outplay the enemy through what you know, or just outsmart him with what you know as well, there's a lot of possibilities. And I think a lot of junglers, like you're saying, have, even though they know what Xinjiao does or what he wants to try and do, even if you know that as a Trundle, it's going to be hard to stop it from happening. And then it's GCG going for the Cannon pick. I do like the Cannon pick. I think it's been approaching or showing its face much more in the current meta, and its team fighting prowess is really good. I hope that they pair him up with something that has a little bit more engage, even if it's on the AD card position with the Barrow, something to get picks, because if not, forcing team fights as the Cannon alone, it's going to be hard for GCG Legion.
Yeah, I almost feel like GCG has almost picked themselves into a bit of a corner here, because they've locked a solo laner in this early. When you lock in the Trundle, you're playing into the Xin Zhao matchup, you have to be counter jungling. You have to be looking to try and get into the main jungler with your solo laners always pushing, and then looking to kill the Xin Zhao in a 2v2 or at a 1v2. The problem when you lock in this early is I wouldn't say he's the strongest solo laner. I mean, he's got a few winning matchups, but now the Grid has a chance to counter this. They could look to get a winning matchup in top and mid with just a strong power pick in mid lane. And then if there's no primary engage for this GCG team, they're going to have trouble, like you said, engaging in those team fights.
Yeah, I do think that Camille, I think Camille probably just outreaches Kennen a little bit. I think Camille is just a step ahead of the Kennen, but I do agree that Kennen is one of the strongest. And yeah, without having that main engage potential with the Kennen, if you are as the Kennen, are the sole engage potential for your team, either you are really far ahead and they play completely around you, or you have another source to help you, because if not, it's going to be hard. With the Tristana pick, you no longer have the big potential from the barriers that I think could have been ideal, and I think that the Twisted Fate takeaway is really good, because I think Twisted Fate is another champion that from a safe distance can kind of force an engagement with the yellow card, and at least with the Kennen you will have the potential to go through that. But the takeaway from the Twisted Fate, I really like it. I really like the Mundo as well, and already I like the combo that Grid had drafted for themselves, because with the Twisted Fate Xin Zhao duo roaming around the map, the Mundo can survive on his own. He doesn't really need to worry that much about dying once or twice, as long as he can just farm happily. And Twisted Fate and Xin Zhao will try and apply pressure on the bottom lane to try and make the Kog'Maw Lulu as strong as possible. And also one thing that I didn't mention with the Lulu that I really like a lot in this composition is that you will be able to also buff the Xin Zhao. And I think that Xin Zhao, like the Olaf, gets so much extra value by being with a caster, with a enchanter support, like a Karma, like a Lulu, because that way at least you kind of hide one of his weaknesses going into the later stages of the game.
I think that's absolutely true. Just being able to get buffed up even more. You got the Crescent Strike to keep you alive. You got the Lulu to keep you alive, and of course, Score Drinker on top of all that as well. Yeah. It will be the Syndra in mid, but I think what we're really looking at here is Triss will auto-push this lane towards Grid Esports bottom lane, which will enable Xin Zhao and Twisted Fate to look for those teleport roams, look for those jungle ganks, and really get this Kog'Maw Lulu ahead. I will say that Grid Esports' comp is really all-inning on this bottom lane, so if it falls apart for them down there, it's not going to look, it's not going to be a good game for them. It's just going to be GCG Legion running over the map.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what you're saying. I always think that Kog'Maw Lulu lives and dies by the fact that if Kog'Maw dies once, you pretty much lose the lane. I think that giving up CS is fine, giving up pressure on the lane is fine. But if you die, as simple as that sounds, if you die as Kog'Maw, it's going to turn so horribly bad for you. So I feel like as long as you don't die once as the Kog'Maw in lane phase, then you are bound to have a really good later stages of the game, which I think Grid, with the composition that they have drafted, should be able to get to that point. It's going to be a lot on GCG to try and achieve that early pressure, use the early pressure from the Tristana Thresh that you were talking about, and see if they can utilize that to force something on the bottom lane, force early objectives, or maybe just try and gank as much as possible and put behind not only the Kog'Maw, but I think Twisted Fate as well. If you're able to put both of these champions behind, you can stun Grid Esports so easily.
I think they do have to be vulnerable. I mean, there are a vulnerable bot lane, right? Kog'Maw Lulu, yeah, they got some safety because of the enchanter support down there, but they have to be careful. I mean, if Kennen looks for a teleport roam behind them, if they get too far pushed up, Syndra should have push over TF in lane, so could look to just shove a wave with the help of the Trundle and then roam bot. There's a chance they can set these dives, and as long as they're moderating, making sure they're baiting out the Twisted Fate's ultimate, and just not allowing themselves to get caught out in that 4 versus 4, making sure they always have that man advantage before they go for a play onto the Kog'Maw Lulu, they could very easily just take over the game.
Yeah, and I feel like with how the Cypher GCG has set up their picks, they have to kind of go for those force positions if they do want to. because if not, they are going to go into a mid game and late game where it's going to be really hard for them to be able to fight. I consider Grid Esports a typical front to back 5v5 composition where you want to fight normally, and GCG needs to be able to find different avenues to be able to fight against these kinds of composition, because realistically, yes, you have the Trundle and the Thresh to kind of be a pseudo frontline, but the Kennen wants to do something completely different to what the Syndra wants to do. So you already have two divisive teams in your team composition. The Tristana kind of lives in between the both things that Syndra and Kennen wants to do, but ideally she doesn't really want to dive in with the Kennen unless you have someone else to dive with you apart from the Kennen. So it's going to be really hard for GCG to be able to turn that around unless they have an advantage, or they are able to force something really early on that the side of Grid cannot ignore, like an early soul point or an early soul even.
I'll be a big part of it too. I mean, with one team playing so heavily around the bottom lane, you know that one of these bottom lanes is going to have the chance to pop off.
Yeah.
And whoever gets that is going to be pushing very early and aggressively towards that soul. I mean, again, it kind of hinges on what soul is it going to be. Will it be something that actually supports their composition? One other thing I wanted to point out was this. I didn't consider this until just now, but the fact that they locked Mundo as a last pick when Trundle was already on the table. So he already has a very strong subjugate target. I know Mundo's more based as a health tank and not really building too many resistances, but still able to just chunk him out and allow his carry to do the damage to that Mundo might be massive in these team fights come late game.
Yeah, I feel like even though, and I love that you touched on that point, even though the Mundo doesn't build those resistances, just being able to take away whatever thing he has left there, it's ideal, because at least that way you can force the Kennen and the Syndra to be able to kill the target. I feel like that at least takes away the safety from the Mundo to be able to face check blindly or things like that, because even if you ignore one CC, there's a lot of CC from the side of GCG. So if you're able to get that the target as the Mundo down, and you're able to use the subjugate from the Trundle, you will be able to burst him out like any other champion. It's not like he's really tanky early on. At least until level 11, his ultimate will get full value, and then after that, it's the amount of items that he will be able to get to the point where he's an actual menace. But that's why I think Grid has a better late game and later stage of the game, but GCG has the potential to be able to take the game if they're able to utilize early game pressure and early game power that they have to get a lot of picks and a lot of gold influx into them.
Absolutely. I think a big point was that I'm very happy that the Tristana here, she has that ability to scale into late game. She won't be entirely useless against this Mundo come late, and that might be huge, just allowing them to pick off the front line a little bit. I think that Xin Zhao might be a bit of a problem, just because Syndra and Triss don't really want to get inside that Crescent guard. Really they want to be focusing on this Kog'Maw. So with its stronger front line coming at them, it's going to be really hard for them to look for that assassination attempt. Going to need to see some really good vision and control, I think, from GCG's support in jungle to make sure they can enable this Kennen to look for those ultimate flanks.
Yeah, I think, and that's one of the ways that you can kind of ignore the fact that you don't have a real engager with the Kennen, is getting those flank wards and being able to get in position to just get the flying Maelstrom on top of the targets, like the Kog'Maw Ludo and even Twisted Fate to a certain degree. So I do think, and I do agree with the fact that vision control this game is going to be crucial, and I would love to see much more of a focus from GCG on bot side vision control, much more so than top side, because I think that you can kind of give away an early herald or things like that as long as you're able to control the bottom side of the map and give an advantage to your bot lane and mid lane. So I feel like if they do go for that place and then utilize the good vision for the Kennen to be able to win, to get good flank wards and be able to win team fights, I think GCG would be doing a huge thing towards their own victory in this game.
Yeah, I mean, play around the dragon. I think Grid here, if GCG does opt for those early Drakes, could opt for an early Rift Herald for themselves, as long as they pick out the timing correctly and know that the other team will be on the dragon. They can try and trade it out for Rift Herald, and that might actually help them enable their Twisted Fate, which would then help them enable their bot lane. It's like a 3-step process to get there, right?
Yeah.
But if they can execute on that plan, it really could help this Kog'Maw continue to scale into the game. As the rest of the picks do come through here, we're almost through Champion Select, and we'll be having that spectator delay. But again, I really do. I think we're both kind of in agreement here that Grid Esports seems to have gotten a handle on this draft. They have a very clear game plan, and I think just having something that's easy to execute on that your entire team understands sometimes is a huge advantage in matches like this.
Yeah, I feel like you're saying, it's something of an easy to execute composition. I won't say it's super easy, because obviously one of the tasks of these kinds of composition is not dying early on and giving away early advantages. But as long as you get to the point where you actually have the power, it's going to be really easy, or at least to a certain degree, it's going to be much more manageable to win fights than what the side of GCG has. Because even though we talk about how the Syndra can be really good bursting targets. The Cannon Maelstrom can work and can work in certain situations. Trogo has the prime target on the Mundo to seal distances and all that. And they also have a really good hyper scaler in the Tristana. I feel like their composition can just fall over really easily if a lot of things don't go well for them. So I am scared for their composition. I do think that it's possible to win with the amount of damage and the amount of CC that they will have in their favor. But I feel like this composition is something that if they don't win by 25 to 30 minutes, it's going to be completely doomed after that point for GCG.
We'll have to see. Can Grid Esports stall out the game long enough, or it'll be GCG's early game composition coming in clutch and picking up the early soul. We will rejoin you guys in just a little bit as we work through the spectator delay here. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back, and we'll see who will win their first round of the split. Stay tuned. To game one between Grid Esports and GCG Legion. One team today will walk away after this game with their first win, but they got the block of 3 ahead to pick up more. Coglulu versus a must early comp. I am Call Me Sulpan, joined by TDS Casts here on the desk. What are your predictions here for this level 1?
I hope we get a good level 1. Like, I'm already seeing 5 members stacked on topside. If you get a kill through this, I'm going to be so happy. I always like these small adaptations, or Jesus, to call it a fun name that teams can get an early advantage. And I think this is something that the side of GCG needs to do. Although they entered a little bit too
and
early.
Pretty bold to try and hook Vindo there when he's got the go where he
nice
plays his pass as he just walks away from the death sentence casually. Icelico just gonna walk up, get a chunk out of Kapua, but otherwise gonna go untouched as he gets that ward on the blue.
Yeah, I love the idea. It could have been a little bit better. I feel like if they walked a little bit later on through the top side into the push, and then they use that vision kind of denial that the Mundo cannot see to get an early hook, maybe they can force something else. But like you're saying, that passive from the Mundo is something really hard to get to actually get an advantage of, because any CC that you have will get denied. And realistically, at level 1, apart from the thresh hook, what else do you have?
We've seen some crazy invids already here in mid lane. We had a straight up walking it down mid and getting a hook onto the mid laner who just was not looking. So I like the look. You never know what you might find. You just got to go fishing and make sure you're out of the water to try and get that. I feel good for a pretty early shove in here against this Fisted Fate. I mean, not really any advantage game does. I think he actually struggled to pick up most of that wave.
Yeah, I think it was mainly, I think the idea was to try and poke the Twisted Fate much more, but I think because you utilize your abilities that much, you ended up just hitting the wave without actually achieving much. And like you see, the Syndra didn't get that much gold. I think if it was better prepped, you can maybe use it with the fact that you know where the Xin Zhao was going, because they have vision control of the Xin Zhao. So you at least could utilize that aggressive vision to time it correctly and use with the Trundle better. But nothing achieved there on the mid lane. Both will keep on farming. The only other good thing that they got was that ward onto the Raptors, but I don't think they have yet seen the shit.
I mean, one thing to note is that both these teams managed to get a ward on one of the buffs, so they should know exactly where this Trundle and Xin Zhao are in theory. Both of them kind of want to opt for that 3-camp clear. Trundle a little bit faster here. Now looking at the invade. Will he get there in time? He actually got the auto! No, he didn't get it. Kappa managed to find it away, but he's still going to die here in the jungle as Trundle just walks in and picks up first blood. Going over to Icelico there, but we got an engagement here in the bottom lane. Coglulu walking up, trying to support their jungler, but it's just the wrong choice. Pillared in, he's trapped. Exhaust goes on into the bait, but it's not enough. Icelico will get his second, and it's all falling apart here in the early game. This is not what you want on the Coglulu composition.
Yeah, and I do need to understand a little bit. First of all, the Xin Zhao dying to the Trundle. I understand that you don't expect the Trundle to be there, but like you're saying, they had vision control over the Trundle, so they knew that the Trundle was either moving into the river or was trying to get into the jungle. And then as soon as you saw him, you secure the red, just flash away and try and survive as long as you can to see if someone can collapse. I think maybe that could have been the play, but overall, really well played by GCD and Silical to be able to get that early kill on the Xin Zhao. And then, for some reason, the Cock they got the vision on the Tribush. For some reason, he walked farther than that, got hooked, and then immediately died after the jungler was already dead. So really great start of an early game for the side of GCG. And what you need to be really careful about with the Cock, dying really early on, you messed it up, you died, and now you give an advantage to the Tristana.
And worse than that too is the fact that he no longer has flash. So this Thunder Pillar just became that much more effective for the next 5 minutes on the spawn lane as well. So it's just super high risk now for this comp. Needs to play this lane extremely safe. The good news is this lane should constantly shove thanks to Tristana's just constantly exploding minions with their passive. But again, he needs to be careful here and not lose anything else, or else it's all just going to fall apart for this team.
Yeah, you now need to go for the plan B with the Cock and just survive as best as you can. Just try and not do anything stupidly risky to die, because like you're saying, and I love that ability from the Trundle, the Pillar, I think it's one of the best abilities to just get kills on or picks onto slow mobility champions, because it doesn't matter if you have flash, if you hit a good enough Pillar, you even get a slow, which means that you're susceptible to dying later on. And I think that Pillar will be so valuable in this game against the Cockmao, against the Lulu, and
everyone on this team, not a single one of them can get over the pillar without using their flash. I mean, I guess maybe Xin Zhao, you could say, if he dashes to the right target, but honestly, yeah, well-placed
But he needs to
pillars
dash into someone,
from
yeah.
Iselico could be huge here in this game. But we got a Genki in the top lane as he runs just onto this Mundo. Kennen just running into melee range.
Oh.
Will try and flash out, but it's too little too late. Another summoner burn, another kill picked up. This Trundle is looking so effective.
Yeah, and early game wise, I think both of these champions are capable of going for the early ganks and early plays, but it's the Trundle that is outpacing the Xinjiao. If you see, the Xinjiao is trying to farm and match the farm with the Trundle, but Trundle is not only farming well enough, but it's also getting the ganks going for the team and getting the advantages. And I think that small difference is much more important right now, and it's going to put the side of GCG at a spot.
Looks like they're trying to force you in the mid lane. Chimichanga may just walked into the wrong bush. That is not your jungle, sir. Will scatter the weak onto the Zinzao. The flash out will be good, and you'll manage to escape with only burning that summoner spell.
Yeah, I don't think Shin knew that the Thresh was walking there, because he stopped thinking for at least a couple of seconds before he actually went for the Thresh. Really interesting interaction there, but really well played by Arathiel to just deny the Xinjiao of getting anything. You blow the flash, yes, but realistically, it's still a huge advantage for the side of GCG. They got 3 kills. They have the push on the top side. They even now are wasting the time of the Shin, because yeah, it got Drake, but it's not like you're converting that effectively.
Yeah, I mean, without a lead, realistically, it's really hard to get on their dragon past this first one being snuck. At this point, from now on, GCG Legion should be playing for the rest of these dragons, just because their jungler being such a strong skirmisher and having Kennen with that teleport will be super effective for that next dragon fight.
Yeah, and with a lead, and one of the things that I don't think I've touched yet with the Trundle is that even though it is a really good champion to deny tanks and everything like that, with it, he also becomes a menacing kill potential champion, because with the Sunderer, he deals a lot of damage, and there's not a lot of things that you can do to stop him.
Getting a little bit risky there. I'm not sure if he ever wants to walk into melee range here of East. I know he's got a slight lead over him, but he just needs to be super careful. I mean, just got such a health pool on this Mundo. East Phantom posturing a little bit here, might have a chance to bring the Zins out in if this Kennen steps just a little bit too far forward, but he's not going to take the bait, even though he's got the 2 marks on him. Adderall playing wisely, playing farther enough back to not allow the Zins out to just walk on in.
Yeah, they would need to blow the lightning rush once again to be able to actually get something, and even then, I'm not sure if you actually kill the Kennen with ultimate and flash here.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, really they didn't know, obviously, that Tribe Bush wasn't warded there. Could have tried to go for that flank all the way around, but man, just not going to find it. Oh, Iselico spot out the Twisted Fate here in the bush. But I don't think he's going to be able to get anything. Pillar will land. Scout of the Week, just out of range. Iselico is going to be forced to just walk out.
Yeah, early flash to run away, but that's the power of the pillar. If you get pillared, even then you are forced to flash away, and the slow can still be effective. I think if Arathiel
you see that
was
bot lane
closer,
synergy? Kapua. In trouble here as the Sport has managed to invade all the way through. Destiny coming in, though. Twistfade's going to join the fight. We might have another skirmish here on our hands, but it's going to be trouble as there is Tristana on the fight as well. Kama has not yet rotated. 4 versus 2 here in a choke. This is not where you want to be against this Trundle. A Flay will in on the 2. Kappa tries to scatter everyone, but he's in range of everyone. He has no way to mitigate this damage. Flash over the wall from Iselico might have been a little bit too aggressive here. Actually didn't get shut down, and that goes to Kog'Maw. That is massive. Kappa with the double bust, looking to get the slows on the Chimichanga bot, but Trundle has gone the opposite direction, and it looks like that will be the end of this pursuit.
I think Thresh is still
might be in trouble here. We still do have the Kog'Maw chasing on forward. Arthiel going to force him away, and finally we have the end of that engagement. But critically, a 3-kill shutdown going over here to that one guy Nos.
Yeah, the person that needed the goal the most gets the shutdown. I think that's really important, and I think it could have been worse for GCG if the Kog'Maw was a little bit earlier to that play. I think he was collecting the remaining CS that was under turret, so he was a little bit late. But if he was there at the start, they can maybe even collect much more than that. He gets away with just 1 kill, but I think ideally for the side of GCG, that's horrible to happen. And for the
Phantom forced to burn the Mundo ult to get out of this fight. But honestly, I'm looking at the score line, the gold leads here. If you're playing a Cog Lulu comp and you're only down 200 gold and you're a Drake up, I think you're fairly happy with how this early game's going.
It's a thumbs up. Yeah. Pretty much. I don't think you can. It does. Some mistakes can happen early on, but like you're saying, as long as the gold lead is not much wider than this, you're in a really comfortable spot, because it doesn't matter how many mistakes you make. the enemy team has a timer. They are playing on a timer. Yes, the timer can get delayed a little bit, but as long as you survive for 30 minutes, I feel like you're really happy with this composition. With
That's Mia being going down mid. May have just spotted out the Trundle here. Gonna be able to hopefully calculate where he's gonna be in the next few minutes, as well as East Phantom just now got his flashback, but with that maximum dosage being down, he is a little bit more vulnerable.
Yeah. Also, another important thing of the skirmish that happened bot side that I think we didn't touch a lot on was the fact that now Shin at least it's ahead in CS to the Trundle, and the fact that they got the shutdown on the Trundle means that now the pacing wise and tempo wise, it's going much more in favor of the Xin Zhao. Now he has the goal to be able to fight, and he also has experience, which I think it's really important to try and be able to win against this Trundle early on in case something bad happens.
Kogma's still a long way off of being where he needs to for this team to really pop off, but Capo's just looking to engage here onto Celica. A little bit aggressive.
Okay.
Kog'Maw and Lulu roaming up as well, as they just can't get up to that wave. Tristana's hanging out, but they will just disengage from this, get the vision, and back on out. Wait, they use Destiny? Oh my, they did. They're still looking to continue this fight actually here in the jungle, as Capo is still trying to charge on forward Erythiel. Gonna drop the Scatter of the Week. Punching away this Kog'Maw and Xin Zhao duo, but nothing much else going to come from that one. Chimichanga bot, boy, actually on the wrong side of the wall here, does have flash and should be just fine, as there really isn't much CC here to speak of. Eastando denies the recall there in top lane. Chimichanga just going to walk on out. Almost hooks in the Kog'Maw there. That could have been massive, but here comes the teleport from the cannon from the top lane. This is exactly what they need. They're actually pushing in the Kog'Maw. He's going for a Malphite ultimate, but that's not what you want to use the Kog'Maw damage for. Now jumping on in, Adderall gets into the fight. Won't actually manage to lock up anyone. Is Capo on the side. Airbot going to pick up one kill, hooking on in on the Xin Zhao. Icelico chasing forward. We'll look for Boy, but not going to find the kill. Kinematics underneath tower gets dove, but is just fine. That should end that engagement, a 1-for-2 overall. They will get the dragon off the back of this, and once again, picking a fight probably not in the space they wanted it. I'm sorry, 1-for-3 overall. A little bit dangerous here for the Grid Esports, as they're still trying to scale. I mean, this Kog'Maw is not as far ahead as you might think.
Yeah, it's not the worst outcome, even though they lose the fight. And I think it was a little bit way too forced from the side of Grid, because we saw it was a long fight. It spawned from the tempting ganking in the mid lane into the blue side of the jungle, from the side of GCG, that they attempt to force a fight, into then going for the Thresh, and they still couldn't get anything. And I like the response from GCG. I think teleporting the cannon there to try and force a fight and at least give him some more gold, really good idea. But they didn't get things. They get 2 plates, which I think are good for the Tristana. They get the Drake, I think that is good as well. But the Mundo also got a lot of gold influx. He gets 3 plates. He also gets a lot of farm. And realistically, the Kog'Maw is not completely behind. Yes, he died at the start, but he's still not at the worst spot possible. And I feel like that's really, really important. It's just a 1,000 and a little bit
Mundo
more
picking up the plates in top
That's
lane. The only other plates to be picked up really on the map has been this. Tristana has managed to get 2 on bottom side, so a little bit of gold in her pocket. She's rocking with the 5 assists, but it is enough to pick up that Kraken Slayer, so she's coming online early with this mythic.
Yeah, and I think this is the most important point. Now, with the mythic completed, now with the amount of damage that Tristana, and not only Tristana, but Trundle will do as well, because he has the Sunder, I think you need to force much more plays and much more kills. Try attempt dives, go for kills that you can get, because if not, you need to get that extra gold lead to keep on pushing yourself up, but they are not being that proactive.
I mean, they do really need to force onto this Kog'Maw. They just need to be careful, make sure they're not handing over kills. A great death sentence here onto Lulu. Arbok's going to be forced to drop the wild growth onto himself. He's going to go down almost instantly. Tristana just hops on out. Dead. I think they actually could have continued this fight. One guy, Nos, might be just being over-aggressing here. Going to force out the stun here on Icelico for the disengage. Crescent Guard also used, but they will manage to keep themselves alive in mid lane. But one more kill going towards Thresh this time, just on the best support that you never knew you needed.
Agent 007, close to 007. She just needs one more assist, and she will be able to hit the dream. I think it's the bot lane from Grid is still trying to force things. They don't need to. I think GCG did a really good play. They forced the kill onto the Lulu. This is what they need to do. But Grid doesn't need to do this. You just need a ward down there and just wait for the waves to crash onto you. You don't need nothing more than that.
Oh, hang on. We got East Phantom in trouble here. Just going to get ulted on by Adderall. Icelico's on the wrong side of the pillar, though. Here comes Destiny as well. He will just pick up the kill straight up on the cannon. That gold did pay off. Kinematics a little bit too forward. Just gets full on bombed, but the Zhonya's does come through, and Kog'Maw picks up yet another kill. Mundo also surviving in top lane. forced to flash out, but did manage to pick up that solo kill onto Adderall.
Yeah, Mundo went wherever he pleased there. He killed the cannon alone, and then on the other side, I love that play from Catamatics. He went for the ultimate. I thought it was going to be an ultimate to help on top lane, but I like that play much more. Because even if the Mundo ends up dying there and trading 1-for-1, you give a kill for the Kog'Maw again. I think that's much more valuable, and you're also getting this turret. So I feel overall, really great decision making by the grid to go for that play in the bot lane, keep on pushing the Kog'Maw, and at least keep on funneling gold to your main win conditions.
Yeah, really unfortunate that this Triss is 0-0-6 right now. I really feel like if some of these kills have been in her pocket instead of Trundles or Threshes, this team would be in a much better position. But right now, when you're dead even in gold 15 minutes into the game, your early game composition didn't pay off for you. This Kog'Maw literally is just going to continue to scale, and it's really going to come down to looking for really good picks off the back of your pillar, and of course, this death sentence from Thresh.
Yeah, the main problem resides in the fact that the early game composition hasn't gotten that huge lead that you can actually say that is with. I think that the Herald is not a bad play. I was talking about giving up the Herald to focus on the bottom side, but if you're going to go for the Herald, go for it earlier. I think you need to get the gold from the plates, and with a Tristana, you can force that play much more earlier. You get the turret from the bot lane early on, and then you can begin rotating the Tristana around so that you can get much more gold value with the Trist. But because they get the Herald right now, it's not a bad objective, but it's not going to get the full value that you can actually get, and realistically it's not going to do that much and stop the scaling potential from the side of grid.
Build right now from that one guy Nos, opting for the Wit's End first so he can kind of protect himself a little bit against the Slicing Maelstrom plus the Syndra. Of course he does have Lulu shields and Wild Growth to supplement that, so those shields and that extra health values will be very effective on him, but he's looking forward here on a pick on the Thresh. Actually, Destiny coming out forward. Look for the flash card, but he can't get it. Flash slow also misses from Arbok. It's a blundered play here in the river, and despite them trying to set up early for this dragon, this Destiny now being out, that's their main engage and pick tool gone. They're just going to have to fight this one out front to back.
I don't know. I know why they went for the play, and I like the idea of the play. They also
watch out for this one. Cannon's teleporting
Mundo
directly into the middle of the team, but can they follow up on this engage? They're all going to be forced to just immediately dash on away, but it's a perfect front-to-back fight. A great death sentence lands straight onto Kog'Maw. That's the perfect target selection. Xin Zhao dashing into the fight will connect with the Wild Growth as well, getting at least one knockup, but he falls, and now everyone's just dropping for this team. Tristana finally getting a double kill. She joins the kill score, and now with the resets, we'll look to continue on to Catamatics. They win the fight. An insane, absolutely critical death sentence from Chimichanga Boy, and they'll get the Infernal Drake as a reward.
That fight was so weird. The fact that both top laners teleported or at least the Mundo teleported so early on and then the Kennen, but Kennen didn't win immediately for the Maelstrom. He had to run away. But on the other side, it separated into two fights. It was one side there were 4 members against 3 from the side of GCG, and on the other was the Tristana solo killing the Xin Zhao, and it forced the attention of the Lulu and the rest of the members. But that critically made it so that for some reason the Kog'Maw kept on walking forward, and I think that's a blunder on him. But it also meant that critically he didn't have the support from the Lulu and anyone else, and as soon as they were able to focus on the Kog'Maw, destroy him, the fight, I think it was so easy to win. Your composition is based around on the Kog'Maw, and if he dies, it's going to be really hard to win the fight. I'm actually going to put this one a little bit
on that one guy, Nos. He's played well so far, managing to get himself shutdowns and winning out a couple fights for his team. When you are the sole damage dealer, you have to do a better job of tracking those critical cooldowns, the ones that are going to pick you off. Death sentence is massive here. Scatter the Weak is the second. The third would probably be the Maelstrom from the Kennen, and maybe even Trundle Pillar. Once those are out, then you know you're safe, but you need to watch out once you're in that range of influence from the Thresh to make sure you don't just get hooked in by a random death sentence. That is not the way that fight needs to start.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like as the Kog'Maw, if it was a different situation, I would have understood it. But you can move behind your Lulu to go help your Xin Zhao. You don't need to go to the other side for the Mundo. Like with this composition, you can abandon Mundo. You can just leave him be and let him survive alone. I feel like that is one of the things that you can allow yourself to do because of how strong and survivable the Mundo is. But on the other side, you do need to be close to the other 4 members because I feel like those are going to be your main pilfers. And abandoning them it's going to be really bad for the Kog'Maw, like we
one
saw
thing we
in the
didn't talk
previous fight.
about earlier in Champion Select was that they do have a really strong 1-3-1 composition. Oh, but here Arbok, unfortunately going for the ward. We'll manage to keep him alive for now. Destiny coming on in here as Debate is actually going to be forced to flash out. East Phantoms joined the fight from the top side. Now looking to continue as he chases onto Icelico. A great Death Sentence once again will land on the Catamatics, but no more damage to follow up. Finally, Disengage comes through. No one dies, but a few summoners burned as Kappa walks in and just gets one auto there on the Thresh. Oh, but I may have spoken too soon. Here's another Death Sentence. Catamatics a little in trouble here. As finally just a flash forward will finish him off. The first kill of the fight will be picked up finally. And here now the collapse is coming on in. Keep an eye on the minimap as Syndra is closing and so is Kennen. Adderall might just land out of Slicing Maelstrom to clean this one up. They're still looking to continue this assault. They are not in the position to do this. Arbok's is going to die immediately. No one to support him. No heal available. That one guy, Nuss, takes the brunt of the Cinder damage. The Death Sentence does not need to land if he just has everything he needs. Arithiel picks up a kill on Kennen, and a great flank from the Syndra means that this fight was completely botched from the Grid Esports.
Yeah, what a random succession of events. A lot of people just committing to a fight that didn't need to happen. It was a 5v3. It was a 5v3 and they still lost it. They committed so hard to try and get a kill for the Kog'Maw when they already were so in no need to force anything. Then they get a kill onto the, if I'm not wrong, it was the Twisted Fate that ends up dying immediately, and then they for some reason still keep trying to go for the play when you know that the Syndra no longer is bottom side, the Kennen is no longer on the top side, they can be collapsing on you. You need to run away. You're already committed way too hard and you lost. You need to cut your losses short and just survive long enough, but they stay close to the play, to the turret, and ends up dying and giving away a lot of gold that you realistically don't need to. This is a way that the side of GCG can take full advantage because they still need to get much more gold to be able to win the game. But they are now with a more than a 3,000 gold lead. And I think this is close to enough to be able to not only put them in the right spot, but also be able to force objectives, important objectives, like the Baron.
I think you're absolutely right to say that. I was just about to give the Great Esports compliments too, as they are staking the Swiss Evade in the bottom lane, which they've done again, and Nono the top. Mundo's hard winning here against the Kennen. He's already got magic resist. He's got extra healing through that Spirit Visage, so he is feeling comfy up here. Twisted Fate, obviously, he's not really going to win against anyone, but he can just keep the lane evenly shoved and then look to Destiny into the fight if anyone ever ends up leaving, or if he just wants to look for a flank play. And they kept Kog'Maw Lulu in mid lane to just farm up, Kapua roaming around. Like, it was a perfect 1-3-1 setup, and then they just commit to a 5v5 fight, which just doesn't make any sense to me. And of course, it backfires on him because that's not what this comp is designed to do at this current moment.
Yeah, and the thing is that the survivability right now for the Kog'Maw is not that high. If you look at his item build,
Yeah, he's looking for to just force him with this Mundo here, but that's a lot of damage he's walking into. I think that's subject onto the Mundo as well. Look at him just explode, but he's got so much healing. Adderall with a great flashing into the backlane, stuns up 3 with a slicing maelstrom. Kapua is left to his own devices. Adderall goes golden to keep himself alive, and now there's 3 versus 5. That's going to chase out the rest of these kills. Death Sentence won't connect. Adderall still looking forward. Will get the stun onto Kog'Maw. That one Nos drops. Arithiel goes godlike. On the resets, it's Debate continuing forward. We'll find Charismatics. Icelico picks him up as Arithiel trying to chase out the Mundo. I don't think he can get this kill though.
Yeah, I don't really know what the need to force a fight there for the Grid is. Like, realistically, you don't need to either commit for a fight or go for a play like that. And we saw there, even though the Mundo has 2 items and can and does have a lot of health, as soon as the Selecao uses his ultimate, as soon as he uses Subjugate to get the resistances out of the Mundo, he's paper. He legitimately died instantaneously to Tristana. And then it was a really easy fight to follow up for the rest of GCG. I've been liking a lot how they've been playing this because they don't need to force the fights. The fights are coming into them for some reason, but they play them really, really well and according to what the situation is. Not over-committing, not over-forcing, and instead answering slowly but surely what the Grid is trying to do, and instead outplaying them and gaining
still don't have as much as a lead as I would like to see them have, but having that 3rd dragon being now at soul point on Infernal Soul will really help this composition chunk out this Kog'Maw and kind of help mitigate some of those resistances and added support from the Lulu he has, but also get through the Mundo. They have a lot going for them right now, as long as they just continue to play these fights, keep it calm, and then look to force these objectives when they have this lead, it will be massive for them, and they can continue to look for the snowball.
Yeah, and I also one thing that I just noticed that I think we need to put a little bit more light into. Look at the level difference. The only one that has a good advantage in levels is the Mundo from the side of the grid, but the rest is level 12 to level 13 in the jungle, level 13 to level 13 in the mid lane, level 11 to level 13 on the AD carries, and level 9 to level 10. There is a really important difference in those particular in terms of experience for both of these teams and in terms of items as well. And I think
Get
that
the
is
pillar on
affecting
the
a
one
lot of
guy
this game.
Nos and a stumble land on the Thresh in the jungle, but I'm not sure what he's looking for. Another great death sentence from Chunga Boy. Forces out the wild
How
growth.
is
He
he
always
cooking?
manages to find him. Now fighting in a 5v5 in a choke. This is not what you want once again.
And maybe
Adderall goes big, and everyone will just drop to
another
bay,
one.
dashing forward on the Tristana once again to pick up the double. And now it's just going to be a freely uncontested Baron here, as once again the Kog'Maw Lulu, while behind, tries to force a fight.
Yeah, and see, I know of Thresh hit hooking, hit seeking hooks from Thresh, but I've never seen a Thresh that can so consistently hit the Kog'Maw. Like, I don't know how he does it, but in that fight alone, he hit the Kog'Maw twice or with one hook, with the hook. And I don't think that should be possible, but he just keeps getting the hook on the important target and being able to win his team most of the fights because the Kog'Maw cannot do anything. Apart from the fact that Grid is forcing fights that they don't need to, it's also really great play from GCG that is winning them the fights and that is making them be at a spot that they are. I feel like with the lead that they have with the Baron buff and with the Tristana that is so strong, they can push forward to try and get the to try and break the base because realistically there's not good enough with
Gonna be the target here. Good pillar for the disengage. Gonna land some slow,
Maybe
but too much crowd control for this team means he's just gonna drop anyways. He's trying to heal up, trying to get away. No smite to get some extra health off that Scuttle Crab. Here comes the Rithiel for the scout of the week, but Mundo goes where he pleases. Will get the shutdown. And this top laner, not exactly with the gold on, but he has been just kind of crushing it here in the split push, so I don't mind it going to Mundo.
Yeah, and I really like that they forced this play because it was
in a little bit of trouble here.
What?
To boy, maybe have overstepped his welcome. Now getting exhausted. The wild growth also keep Kapua alive. A flash to follow the Zinzao. He's managed to push out, actually picking up 2 kills here. And despite this fight not looking great at the start, they managed to get 2. Suddenly Cinders has been exhausted. East Phantom's chasing forward. Will get the kill on that one as well. Actually, that one guy Nos getting a shutdown. And Kog'Maw getting exactly what he needs here will pick up yet another kill that will grant him just so much gold in his pocket. Adderall was split pushing during all of that. We'll get 1 tower for losing a few teammates in that fight, but we will once again see another coming together of these teams, most likely 5v5 at this Soul.
Yeah, but I honestly think that is a huge win for the side of Grid because they could lose this. They lost the inhibitor turret, and that could be much worse. But realistically, they were going to lose one of the turrets anyway.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at Chimichanga Boy doing the lantern.
That works.
He says, "Yeah, there's someone behind me. You don't know what's behind me. It could be a champion. It could be someone scary." That one guy not forced to just walk away. Doesn't get the tower. I like the posturing. Another passive proc here from East Phantom means the death sentence doesn't connect, but look at this. Early vision control established. This Soul should be going over to GCG Legion.
Yeah, they need to wait for the Kog'Maw. And also, I'm quickly going to comment on this before the fight breaks out. No Mythic Kog'Maw. Going for the Kingswap after this, it seems.
Kinematics walking in with the gold card. It's a 2 versus 5 to start off the fight. And look at the slicing Millstone just zoning out everyone else. It is over quick. That one guy, Nos last alive, will drop immediately. Ace here for GCG Legion. The Soul for GCG Legion. And I don't think it'll be the game just yet, but it's got to be coming soon.
Yeah, it's really close. If it's not yet, it's going to be really close. And that fight, I really like it once again, how the side of GCG played it. We were talking about this in the draft, how the Kennen it was going to be really hard to force an engage unless you had an advantage or something else to help you. But the side of Grid tries to walk forward disjointedly, separated from the rest of the members. It was Mundo and Twisted Fate walking forward, and then the other 3 members trying to follow up behind, but not being fast enough. And the pillar separation there forces a really good fight by Adderall, and is able to give them a huge positioning advantage to win that fight and just get a complete ace. Really well played. They cannot win the game yet, but it is certainly so close to being the game for the side of GCG. Really well played. They have been really aggressive, answering correctly what Grid wants to do, and playing, I feel like, better
I like the
than
call to
Grid.
back off here. I know they're insanely far ahead, but they want to reset. They want to spend the gold they just earned off the lack of that last fight. On top of that, they had no ultimate cooldowns here, just now coming back online. So staking around, potentially allowing those to get engaged on, while it was 5 ultimate cooldowns to maybe like 4 or 3 still being on cooldown for the other team. I'd like the look to back out, but this really is going to come down to probably one last fight, one final stand here at this last inhibitor tower. And it might even be through at a Baron, depending on how long this team wants to try and stall it out.
Yeah, realistically, they don't need to go for the last Baron, for the last turret. I feel like they can just rush it. As funny as it sounds, I think they can rush it down mid. With their teamfight prowess, they can force something. But I do understand feeling a certain, because obviously you don't want to
just going to pick him up. That's a good solo.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, another good solo kill here for Adderall. 1v1 picks up the Twisted Fate, and now it'll be a 4v5 fight for their lives to stop themselves from losing their 7th in a row. That one guy just gets blown up. Debay knows his damage and knows it well. Will pick up the Kog'Maw there through the wild growth. I think through the heal as well. Oh my god, Arthiel with the damage onto Lulu. Deleted. Kapua quickly to follow here as he will actually manage to flash that last orb. Jungle wants to pick it up though. Icelico says, Jungle Div, you'll run out and pick that one up. He's Phantom left alone under tower. This is what happens when your Twisted Fate gets picked off early. Chimichanga? Throw out the Mia pings on him. He almost goes down there. Adderall is here to clean it up. Okay. And finally, it will be GCG Legion taking the game.
What a way to win the game. At the end, they just burst their way open, getting a lot of kills all over the map, and they just rushed it forward. That was really close, bad. Will they get it? They didn't. But anyway, really well played by GCG. I feel like they understood how they needed to play the game. They got really important advantages early on. It wasn't enough at the first minutes, but after that, they won really crucial fights that were kind of prompted by the side of the grid themselves, and they took full advantage of that and ended up winning the game. I think GCG played really well. They certainly were understanding more what they needed to win, and they executed better for that. I think that the grid, if they were much more calm in a lot of the situations that they were put into, they could have turned it around, but realistically, they were kind of desperate at some points, forcing things that they didn't, and I also don't really like that much the Kog'Maw build. I feel like Shield Bow is a must, because it's way too much burst damage from the side of GCG, and having that extra shield to protect you, it's going to be ideal. At some point,
it's all about survivability for that Kog'Maw, as you can really only get so much damage on that crazy champion. But that has concluded game 1 here. We saw the Grid Esports come in with this composition, play maybe a little bit overzealous and over aggressive with this Kog Lulu, and we're unable to scale up here against GCG into the late game. We'll be right back with game 2. Congratulations to GCG Legion for picking up their first win of the split. As we head into the rest of this block of 3, stay tuned. We'll be right back.